Welcome to the Railway Laser Lines video tutorial on the O-gauge concrete posts and panels. You can most probably do the same effect on the 001s as well, to be honest, but they are made of card rather than MDF, so most probably less paint is required. Anyway, this is the O-gauge pack that you get. So you'll get 2 sections of 5 panels, and you'll either have the 3 panel posts sections or the 6 panel post sections. In this particular case, I've got a 3 panel one, and you'll also get your posts. They're held in by a couple of little sprues either side at the ends, so you just need to tag them out. I use a little zippy blade and just literally go in there and tab them off. You might find, because they are so small, you can literally just take them out. They'll come out, and they might even come out in transit as well, but I will include the template to keep them safe. The posts are slightly revised. I haven't done the insets at the bottom to screw into your baseboard or whatever, because obviously this is 3mm thick, so it was just as easy to create them without, and you can glue them to your baseboards. So I've had a number of people ask me, how do I go from this effect, obviously as you get it, to that effect, as in being painted and to look like concrete panels. So I'm going to show you, and what you're going to need are the following. Obviously you need some PVA glue, because you will be gluing these 2 post sections together. I use Deluxe Speed Bond. I find that works really well. And then 4 paints from the artists section. I get these from the range, and it's black, dark grey, light grey and white. I think they're about £1.30 a pot. These will last you forever. So that's all we need. So I'll show you the procedure that I did to get my panels looking like that. Okay, so I've removed the template, and we've now got the concrete panels, and I've taken the posts out, and all we've got to do now is, you'll see obviously there are gaps in between the posts, and we're going to slide 5 of them onto one piece and the remaining 6 onto the other piece, because obviously we have one post at the end, then individual sections. We need to join the 2 post sections, concrete panel sections together, and obviously one of those posts will hide the join, and then obviously we will repeat that on the other end as well. So what I'll do is I'll just slide these on, and then I'll come back to you. So the posts are now slid onto the concrete section, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to dot some PVA glue just down the very end, 4 or 5 little dots of glue, and then move that along to the end, make sure it's flush. I'll use my finger and thumb to pinch it together for it to hold for a few seconds, and that will keep it in place. I will then come back, and then I will do some more. Again, we'll dub some glue along the vertical line in a few places, move that post and hold it there, and repeat the section until we come to there. And then obviously then we'll join the sections up. So what I'll do is I'll glue these in place, and I'll come back and show you. As you can see, there is very little glue. It is literally dabs of glue all the way down those vertical lines. We don't need much. This is not going anywhere, and this Speed Bond glue really does hold well. So what I'll do is I'll fix those in place and come back. So I've allowed those to dry for a couple of minutes. They're not going to go anywhere. Now obviously what we want to do, we want to connect this concrete panel section to this one. So I've slid on the 6th post, and then I've slid on the remaining 5 posts ready. And what I'll do is I will add some Speed Bond glue to the sides of this one and also that one, and butt it up. And then I'll also add the dabs of glue on the top, and then I'll slide this over so it's in the middle, and I'll hold it there and make sure it bonds and allowed to dry. And I'll give this one a little bit longer, because this is obviously the join. So, and then once that's dry, we would carry on doing the glue on these posts. And once they're all done, we can come back, and most probably I'd allow this a good couple of hours to dry before you start painting it. You don't want those posts coming away just as you're about to paint, so it's worth leaving it for a while. So that's the 2 panels joined together, and what you can do is with your thin brush run a small amount of glue all the way along the inside there and also inside there, and then wipe it off. This will, and then obviously all I'm doing is literally holding it down to glue and bond, and then once it's dry I'll turn it over and I'll do the other side. So this way it gives the section where it joins that little bit of extra strength, so it's not going to fall apart. You're going to be painting over this anyway, so if you've got a little bit of glue left over, it's not going to be the end of the world. But that's done, so what I'll do is I'll complete the rest of the post, and obviously the last post I'm going to put flush on the end like I did on this end, and then we'll allow those to dry, and then we'll come back and do some painting. So I'll flip the fence over and I've just run some glue down both sides of the center post to give it that little bit more strength. Allow that to dry, and then we can come back to that. As you can see, that's all done and that's ready to paint. So the first base is the darkest color, so I've added some black and also a dab of white, and I'm going to mix this together to get a dark grey consistency. If it's too grey, I'll add a little bit more white, etc, etc. So let me do that. You don't need to see me stir paint, so I'll come back to you. So that's my mix, and it's most probably a little bit too dark. Concrete fencing isn't really that dark, but obviously we want to build this up in layers, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another little bit of white, and I'll mix that in, and we'll get a slightly lighter tone, and then we'll come back. Okay, I'm happy with that colour. So the first thing we need to do now, because we're using the sponging method, when we sponge it on here, we're not going to get right inside these posts, and you'll end up with some brown MDF posts showing. So what I tend to do is I just get some paint and I literally paint down inside the nook. Simple as that. And I'll go along and do all 11 of them either side, and I'll come back. So we've now gone along each side of the post. You know, I've got some all over the post. It doesn't matter because we're going to be sponging those anyway, but it's to get your paint inside that 1 mil section of the post, because when you put your sponge on, you'll miss pieces. So the brush will help you out do that. So I've done both sides, I've turned it over, and I've done the other side as well. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get our sponge, and it's literally, I have a tiny piece of sponge. I can't even remember where I got it from, and I cut it and it's that big. There you go. It's tiny, and as you can see, it's filthy. It's been used before, and it has a texture in it. So what I'm going to do is it's a bit wet at the moment, I'm going to just dry that out, and then it's literally dabbing the paint in there, and I'm going to basically try and get rid of some excess. I don't need that much paint on, and then you're dabbing it as you go along. There's no science to this, and you're just basically gradually covering the panels with that grey, and you will, as time goes by, complete it. So I'm going to get some more paint. I literally go back into that and dab it on, turn your sponge, and obviously I've got a straight part so I can go right down into the side of the fence, and the more you put on, gradually you'll cover it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on all the way alongside, and I'll come back and show you what I've done. So there's the first sponging with the dark grey, and as you can see, if I close in, you know, there's lots of bits missing off the MDF. It still shows through, but we are building up different layers of colour greys, so this is what we need to do. We don't want to cover the whole lot in grey, otherwise it looks stupid. So obviously where you've got your posts, sometimes you can get your sponge and literally go up and down slightly just to fill those sections in, otherwise you'll end up with all blank sections. So I've done a few. I'm going to let that dry. This takes minutes to dry, and then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to do the same colour. It's pointless doing one side and then coming back and doing the other. You may as well do the same colours at the same time. So I'm going to turn it over and do the other side, and then we'll come back and do the next coat of grey. That's the other side done, and just slightly different textured and lightness and darkness here and there, because we're going to build up the layers. Don't want it all looking exactly the same. So we finished with the paint, we finished with the sponge, so I'm going to dip it in my pot and I'm going to clean it out, let dry it, and then we will come to the next one, which is the dark grey, and we will simply use that one and we'll sponge over. And then the third coat we will use light grey, do exactly the same, and then finally we'll go over with just a small amount of white, but I'll show you what it looks like after the second coat. Now we finished the second coat, so it's literally the sponging technique again. You're dabbing it, away you go, and obviously because it's a lighter texture, it's starting now to blend in, and you can start to see the effect that the concrete's now starting to take, and it's starting to get towards that finished state. So I've done this section. Again, it's just doing it in random motions, just any way you want. There's no set pattern. Obviously I've got it all over my mat, but that can wash off. These are acrylic paints. I'm just going to let that dry for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn over and do the other side. So that's coat number 2. That's the dark grey, and that's now starting to give that textured effect. And then the third coat is we're going to use is the light grey. So the dark grey paint on the MDF is dried, so I can use that as my base, and I'm going to start to dab that in, and we will give the fencing its next coat. Now we've put the third coat on, which is the light grey, you can now start to see the real effects of the concrete. And on this particular coat, after I've done the dabbing, you can also smudge from left to right and down and just blend them in, just to give it that little bit more of effect. If I move it in slightly, you'll see all the different tones and different effects on each panel. I move it out, you'll see. Obviously, you still got the dark tones from in the fence posts, but you'd most probably find over a period of time the grime and dirt and mud and whatever gets in the post, so it doesn't look out of place. And obviously, on the finished one, you can still see the light, the dark effect as well down there. So that's one side done. I'm going to turn over and do the other side, and then we'll come back and do the final coat, which is white. This is the final light grey coat. I've put a bit more grey on this one than the one I've got on my diorama. Most perhaps it looks a little bit more realistic. Mine other one is quite a little bit more darker grey, but I did go over it with another grey just to give it that extra tone. But what I want to do on this one is just finish it off with real subtle white spots, as you can see in my concrete there, just little tiny pieces of white every now and again, just to break it up. So although this is lighter, I'm still going to add that white. And then obviously, if you're not happy with it, just go back and add a slightly darker grey and get it until you're happy with the result. You know, is there a right look for a concrete? To me, that looks pretty damn good. And obviously when it's dry and you look up closer, the texture is really, really good. And on a layout, and if you put it up there, yeah, and glue it down, obviously then it's going to look really good. And obviously, if you want to be really clever, once you've finished with it, which is what I did here, is actually I cut a panel out to make it look a bit more prototypical, and it's literally with a very, very sharp knife, your zippy blade or whatever you use, it's literally cut down the side of the post, either side, slice along the engraved line, and it should snap out. But I would do this very carefully, and obviously then just make good inside the posts and on the top, repaint it, and then you'll have, you know, you can even go down to 2. And obviously the people who buy the 6 panels, you might want to go down to 3 or even 4, You could do it before you paint it, to be honest. No right or wrong way to do that, but again, it's finished. I'm just going to add some tones of white and we'll have a look and see how that is. And that's just finished off with some subtle white patches. Really, you know, the sponge, although it looks like there's a lot on there, there isn't, and it is literally dabbing it very lightly just to give some highlights of the concrete. And I'm going to let this dry. Obviously you get filthy fingers, but that's the part of modeling. Don't forget obviously to paint the top of your fence, the posts, and obviously then once you're happy with that, this needs weathering. It needs some tones of brown, maybe some moss or ivy growing up the posts. Some, you know, you can do whatever you like with it, but there you go. That's our concrete posts and panels done. Hopefully that's been of help to someone who's purchased these, or if you hadn't purchased them and thought, I wouldn't mind having a go at that. There you go. They're available on railwaylaserlines.co.uk. These are the O gauge ones. These are made of MDF. The double O gauge ones, unfortunately, because of the thickness, it wouldn't look right, so they are made of card. So I do suggest, if you're doing the card ones, is that you do take extra care when you're painting them. You might not want to go to 4 levels of paint. You might want to forget the dark grey to start off with, because obviously the card, the engraved lines for the panels will clog up more, and card will bow and bend if you put too much paint on it. So obviously once you've done it, you're most probably going to have to super glue in a couple of panels at a time as you go along to make sure it's straight. But the thickness of MDF, this is pretty damn strong, and this will look good on any layout. So I'm pleased with that. At the moment I've got nowhere to put this one, so this can be just a sample, and oh, there you go, available for display when we go to exhibitions. Thank you for watching, and any questions, do get in touch through the contact page on Railway Laser Lines, or on the Facebook page, which is Railway Laser Lines and Project Zero. More than happy to answer questions there. And if you've got any concerns or any suggestions of other products, please get in touch. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.